Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee, and I am John Clark.
And I'm Joe Barnhart, and we want you to know that if you do believe in God or if you don't believe in God, you're welcome, and we hope you won't be alone. Be with us. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free thinkers, open thinkers, atheists or not agnostics, and others willing to discuss things rationally and openly and kindly, we hope. It's a show for them and for people committed to open discussion and a rational discourse. But we find we want you to tell you have a little bit our sponsors. We have, for example, the Atheist Society of Knoxville frequently has fun meetings. They meet at a bar or an eatery, a place to eat, and that's at Barley's in the Old City, starting around 5:30. And so look for the silver jacket copy of a book. I think it's called The God Delusion. Mm-hmm. It's standing upright on a table.
Right above my head, that one.
Well, good. And everyone is welcomed for food and conversation, old-fashioned fellowship. And if you're planning to preach or proselytize, well, slow down a bit.
Yeah.
You'd be welcome to come. Uh-huh.
And the Rationalists of East Tennessee have several regular monthly meetings. The first and third Sunday mornings of the month are usually a lecture, roundtable discussion. Second Sunday is a book club. And fourth Sunday, there is a get-together, a reflections meeting, they call it, potluck lunch at someone's home. Later on the website, we'll be detailing out some of our times and locations, as we just did. But first, we'll talk about some things that have been in the news. Mm-hmm. This weekend wasn't just the day that the Easter Bunny died for sin. No, wait, I get that confused.
Go ahead.
The Easter Bunny and the religious aspect, it's complicated and confusing. But it wasn't just Easter. It wasn't just a religious holiday for other people. But it was the 2014 American Atheist Convention in Salt Lake City, Utah. So here the atheists come with President David Silverman to the heart of the Mormon world, in a way. And
how did it go?
Yeah, so I attended it, and let's see. It was, first off, it's a lot of fun. If you haven't gone to one of these things before, or if you've been to the Reason Rally, it's much similar. It's smaller, of course, and it's more focused, and you don't pack as much into one day as you would at the Reason Rally. But you know, you get together and you talk about what's relevant, and of course, David Silverman set out a mission plan for what we're going to do and what we might try to do over the next year. How have we succeeded in the past?
Yeah.
And as you know, as many of the viewers know, atheists are growing. And they're not growing only in the sense that people are becoming atheist, but people are more comfortable saying they are atheist or they are rationalist. And the conversations that surround that, which are some of them identical to political conversations that occur in law and whatnot, are also relevant, and discussions of what we like to talk about. You know, is God real? What does God mean? What does even the word mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean to...
It means different things to different people. Right?
Yeah, and it's... So that of course has happened, and you've always got people that are new to this type of event and lifestyle, but it's just a means for everybody to get together and share their experiences, and then also hopefully get some direction, which is a prime topic this year and actually last year, ever since 2012, and probably building up to it. I didn't go to the meetings before then, because that was the main one that got me. But a little bit about American Atheist. This was an organization started by Madalyn Murray O'Hara. She didn't start it in 1959, but she sued was involved in a lawsuit in which is now pretty much responsible for setting a church-state standard regarding prayer in schools, public schools. Now, this doesn't eliminate prayer. What this does is it eliminates the state sponsorship or any sort of endorsement of one religion over another, which has been seen now as just an extremely beneficial thing. But at the time, she was once called the most hated woman in America. And I imagine if you could just send that across the world, and in various countries, it'd be true as well. American Atheist typically leads and she started this organization in later on, I want to say 65, but the point, this is tip of the spear media. This is legal battles, and as you know, we've seen the American Atheist say, hey, remove this memorial cross from the 9/11 memorial in New York. And that's it's controversial. It hurt people. It makes you think.
It's on public property.
Exactly. And we question the state sponsorship, and that is a tip of the spear, aggressive atheism form. Causes a lot of
well, when this
controversy.
Separation of church and state theory began, it was religious Protestants in particular developed this.
Right.
Not atheists.
They were running from a state religion, correct?
Yes, and they were saying, don't let the state sponsor any particular religion, or even religion in general. Just let the state be neutral and free, so that if you want to have this religion of yours, another person wants his or her religion, another person wants no religion, or this one wants to go back and forth or be an agnostic, you're free to do so. And that was new in the West, and it's still new in a lot of the East.
Oh yeah, and it's so ironic that a rather non-religious, or certainly a non-godly organization of people in the middle of the last century are the ones leading the call back to that, and it's the sons and daughters of the Puritans and Protestants now in America who are they've forgotten their history and starting to impose these things.
I know some Baptist ministers who apparently don't know their own Baptist history.
Right.
At all.
That's it.
And that's a sad thing. I don't know what they did when they were in seminary.
Yeah.
They must have slipped through the course.
I know, I can't help but wonder that I had some ministers in the past talk about going to seminary. And then they immediately stopped about the talk about seminary and ended up talking. The conversation just always went somewhere else. And you were left with this feeling that the people in seminary didn't know what they were talking about. But then you why did you go to seminary, right?
It is not true they didn't know what they were talking about. They're good scholars.
Exactly.
It's just some of the people who went there simply didn't take advantage of the opportunities they had to get themselves better educated. But I had very good teachers.
Yeah,
as good as anywhere. I went to many schools, including Harvard, and I never had any better teachers than at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, see, but they were incredibly good scholars.
Exactly. And knowledge is important to all of us.
Yes.
And it's not surprising that.
Are we hooked up well enough? Okay.
It's a little funny. All right.
So let's get on now with our topic.
Yeah. So I do want to get to the topic. Today's topic is going to be is debating worth it, particularly among atheists, agnostics, and when we have that debate with religious people or about topics that are
or among ourselves,
and among ourselves as well. I want to give a strong. I'm not going to be neutral on this. I think debates are incredibly worth it in all instances that I can even think of. But let's talk about maybe the bad things that can happen as well. And it's worth mentioning again that the Bill Nye and Ken Ham debate, which occurred at the Creation Science Museum, I believe, and it was about creation and Ken Ham's creation model, which is to say a young earth creationist type model. This debate, barring presidential debates, was one of the most watched debates in history. And so I hope a lot of the people at home have seen it, because I will talk a little bit about some of the debate maybe to make some comparisons. Bill Nye came in there, and as you know, he's not really he doesn't talk about atheism. And in fact, I don't know that he's ever said he is an atheist, but his views are very secular. We get along a lot. And he goes to many of these conventions. He's a spokesperson for science. He's a popularizer of that idea. And when people interfere with that, particularly with our children, Nye you can see that he cares deeply about it. That's from his show, Bill Nye the Science Guy, and that's why he does it. He did that, and that's why he does the activism he does now. And so he came in there, I thought, with a very positive way to this debate. He said, "Is Ken Ham's model viable for the world? Does it help our economy? Does it help us understand the world more, to use a creation model?" And he argued that no, it doesn't. That it doesn't make predictions. And what he means to say is predictions that were not validated. The predictions of creation models typically, well, none of them are accurate. So,
in other words, if such and such is true, then you ought to predict certain else or certain other things to be true.
Yeah, and Nye. So in this sense, Nye's not even talking about.
For example, made a very bold prediction.
Yes.
And it made it clear that by making his prediction clear, then people could check him and he might be wrong.
Oh, and his position was falsifiable.
Falsifiable, yes.
Very important.
In other words, if I say to you, I'm a real prophet, I predict that if you go to the third room down the hall, something will be there. Well, I've said something, but not much.
Yeah. I can make that prophecy true in a lot of sense.
But it's really so vague and so non-specific. When I say something will be there, that isn't saying very much. And what Einstein was trying to say is when you make your predictions in science, make them very precise, both in space and time. It's the quality and the quantity, so that people can check it.
In fact, he did such a good job on it, but at the same time, he was thinking in a way a lot of people weren't, that later on he ended up correcting his own
mistakes. In fact, he hired mathematicians to help him to find flaws.
Yeah.
And when Karl Popper, the famous philosopher who talked a lot about falsifiability, was teaching in Princeton, or he was invited to talk in Princeton, Einstein came to hear him and invited Popper to his home so that they continued to talk about falsification.
Now, in this specific instance, we're talking about scientists doing work. This is a professional setting in which everyone's seeking knowledge, but it's academic, and it tends to go into very specialized areas that are honestly over a lot of our heads if you're not paying attention, right? But it's the mutual search for knowledge, and it's a debate that's taking place in that field, right?
Even this falsifiability is just ordinary common sense intensified.
Right.
For example, if you tell me something, you go down the street and here's what you'll find, and you're clear enough, and I go down there and I don't find it, then your prediction has been falsified.
Yeah.
And what science does is takes the ordinary common sense that we use every day and really intensifies it, keeps good, clear records,
right,
and cross-checking, double-checking, and but it's not something that most people could not understand if they gave their
right.
Most people have to work at other jobs and don't have time to do this.
Well-defined definitions of the stuff we're talking about, our premises and our conclusions in this type of debate. So let's shift gear to a type of debate that's almost just the opposite,
right,
which would be making the claim that I can't prove or disprove. And you don't have to go that far. Proving something's very difficult in a lot of ways, especially when it's like a negative type claim.
I got you.
Prove to me, for example, no Easter Bunny exists. Very difficult to do. However, I could make a very good argument for the Easter Bunny not existing. But, so let's not. So
that's a good point.
Let's not establish. Let's go to where none of these things are established. We don't even know what each other is talking about. And a good example of that would be kind of what we see today in politics. One is marriage equality. We hear constantly from various religious communities, this is a common idea in religions, that homosexuality is a sin. But what does that mean? And the documents they refer to are religious texts, but they're often a collection of translated fragmented texts. And in the case where they're very well preserved, in the sense of, I think this might come under Islam, right?
Well, both Islam and the ancient Hebrew tradition.
Right, the ancient Hebrew, yeah.
Every culture have had some rules against homosexuality, and I think the reason for this, and my wife has studied this a lot more than I have because she was a counselor for many years. And one thing is that most cultures had to, if you can pardon the pun, work very hard to survive, and homosexuality did not help generate.
Right.
The lifespan was very low. I mean, the years of expectation sometimes could be 20-some-odd years. I mean, we're going way back.
Exactly, yeah.
But so that it was imperative that people generate more children if the tribe and the community was to continue.
And that was probably, it's a wasteful activity in a sense for them.
Sure.
And then you notice that as certain civilizations reach a point, you know, Greeks, for example, that probably didn't hurt them at all to have a big old party and drink a lot of wine and whatnot and do things that are considered sinful. So you'd say that doesn't apply. And
well,
so
let's take why would drinking be considered sinful? Okay, now let's look at it. Forget the religion. How much drinking is sane and how much is insane? I think you and I could agree. Beyond a certain point, drinking is lunacy. It's that you are a danger to the highway, and you should be locked up until you're sober. Because you could kill people.
Right. And if you repeat this activity, well, you're a problem.
Yeah, you are a problem. Furthermore, if you're married and have kids, and you're a drunk, and you're not supporting your family,
right,
then you are a drain on the family.
Right.
And so I think this is why many people became so fierce about drinking, because I personally saw an enormous amount of harm when I was growing up.
Right.
I had 2 uncles, I think I mentioned them, whom I never saw sober.
Right.
So now moderation is a concept Aristotle talked a lot about, is what we're talking about now. If some people can drink in moderation, that's understandable.
Right. But back to the debate issue. When you hear it now, it's just asserted, and so what I wanted to kind of say was that you have the religious right political movement, which asserts that this traditional family is what. Now, when they're doing that, I find that a lot of them don't give me the answer you just gave, which has specific claims, which can be tested. We can test the claims about alcoholism versus having a party. And we can compare which ones are worthwhile and which ones aren't. The issue is, in this debate where it's just asserted as sin, as the fall of man, and basically those things are never talked about in any detail.
Why is it?
And what happens is, how do you rebut that in a debate without digressing into the history of each and every little bit unless someone defines it? And so, whereas before we were talking about science, very specific types of assertions, falsifiable claims, in a debate where it can be bad is if you don't make a claim that I can't, homosexuality is a sin.
Okay,
I don't have to.
Let's talk about homosexual marriage. Now, my wife and I have been married 60 years. Although I think for Marianne it might feel like 100 years.
Right.
But she and I have been married for 60 good years. Now, as a marriage counselor, she's taught me to think about what is marriage. And it seems to me marriage is a special, very special kind of commitment and devotion that people have to each other. And it's a kind of devotion that is different from all other kinds of devotions. And you're devoted to the happiness and the health and the welfare and the goodness of another person with such a commitment that it is different from all the other commitments. And there's a kind of exclusiveness to it. Now, it seems to me that kind of commitment can be between people of the same sex or of different sexes.
Al is calling.
Don't have time. Now, In other words, if we're talking about marriage as commitment and devotion and love, then that's a question as to whether or not it's the same sexes or opposite sexes. And I'm not making a campaign for homosexuality or heterosexuality. Also, I think people should have a right not to be married at all.
Yeah.
But what I'm suggesting is that we should have a society and people have a right to choose what makes sense to them in their circumstances.
Really quickly, for the viewers at home, we had a little issue with audio, so if you've been trying to call in, what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and give it another shot, and hopefully we'll get you on the line. We know that we've had some calls that we've missed, so please call in when you can. But
you mentioned debate now. So
right.
We could debate something like this. Let's talk about what is a debate.
Right. A discussion, number one.
Yeah.
But it's a functional discussion. We've got a purpose.
It's focused on a topic.
Some people would say that a debate would be me trying to beat you with my idea and or at least support my idea so much that show that your idea is inferior. And I would say they're almost right. We are discussing that, but we're sharing knowledge is what we're doing.
Yeah, I like the second approach better. First of all, if I'm debating you, I'm presupposing you don't know everything, and it's kind of obvious I don't know everything.
Right.
So we have to share ideas if we're going to communicate. Now, one thing you could say is a debate is a well-organized, formal discussion and a formal sharing of ideas. In that sense, it's a positive thing. It's not like a football game in the sense that I have to clobber you in order to win, or you have to clobber me.
Right. And wouldn't that, once you have that mindset, which I think you can understand why a person would fall into it, you kind of just explained it, you start allowing certain tactics to come in.
That's a good point.
Interrupting your opponent tactically.
Or misrepresenting your opponent.
The straw man fallacy, yes. And these are things that hinder debate.
It hinders an intelligent discussion, and which is what a debate really is. It hinders it, yeah.
Now, I find, and I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago, when passion gets in there, it's a good motivator. But that's when you make your mistakes. And guess what? When people are talking about atheism right here, you can call in and talk about it. Phones are live. I hear someone out there right now, so hopefully we'll get them in here.
In fact, I don't like the word atheism.
Right.
Because I don't anymore, and I like the word non-Hindu.
Yes.
That doesn't
non-stamp collector.
It doesn't tell you. It tells you what you're not.
My favorite is non-stamp collector.
Non-stamp collector.
I am a non-stamp collector. Yeah. Why should I ever have to tell someone? The only time you tell someone that you don't collect stamps is if they say, "Do you collect stamps?" That's the only time.
Yeah.
And so it is silly. And this is kind of that tactical approach. American Atheist uses it, and Madeline Murray would say, you use the word, it stings, especially to people who've been told that is heathenism, that is, and they use it tactically.
As a lawyer had, I think, a good point, is that the word itself should not be outlawed, and people who call themselves atheists should not be prevented from certain kinds of jobs or the regular privileges that most people get.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't do the same toward Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
In other words, people have a right. If an electrician comes in, you don't ask, is he a Jehovah's Witness? An electrician came into my house and did a superb job, and I was incredibly grateful. And also we had a long conversation afterwards.
Right.
But I didn't ask him what his religion was. I didn't say, now, are you a humanist, or are you an atheist, or are you this or that?
Well, he's definitely an electrician.
And he's definitely an electrician.
And he's a good one.
And he was an honest man and a good man. And we had a very good conversation.
Well, okay. Now, some would say, because I'm a devil's advocate here, some would say if I didn't use the word atheist, I may not get the attention I need to start certain conversations. And so you and I, we find ourselves, I think, in a pickle. Because you don't want to use the word. But yet, sometimes it's the only way to get in there.
I got
like, for example, so I'm wearing my American Atheist Loud and Proud t-shirt. I was not wearing this when I left on the plane. I had packed it in with the wrong bag, and I met two people, should they debate creationists with no credentials? Now, an argument's made that when you do that, you raise a person who is, for the most part, they're not in that arena, and you're letting them into an arena with a scientist. Now, I find myself on both sides. The issue I would have with the academic is academics live in a bubble. You studied theology and you taught it, but actually you got to debate and do lots of talks around. So you kind of got to dip in both pools. But surely you can see how somebody who functions at that level in academia, constantly defending very sophisticated and understood positions with other people that you don't have to explain the basics to.
I got you.
Right? You live in a bubble when you do that.
Yeah, you're isolated in that.
And so the argument is that I understand, the way I understand it is, you've got, for example, Ray Comfort, who's, forgive me, a whack job nut creationist, not the intellectual kind at all, coming up with a banana, telling people bananas were shaped such a way by God. It's intelligent design. They're shaped to fit right in your hand. It's got a color-coded skin, just like the threat levels of government, right?
Yeah, it would be unfair for someone who say is a naturalist rather than supernaturalist to debate someone like him as if he represented more of the rational theists or Christians or Jews.
Yeah.
In other words, if you're going to debate someone, you ought to debate someone who is very good on the subject.
Right.
And not someone who looks like a buffoon, because that's unfair, it seems to me.
All right. Just want to remind viewers at home that this is a call-in show. I think we should go to our mid-program break, perhaps. And if you could run that, just stay with us for a moment. When we come back, we'll try to straighten out these phone lines.
Supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org. If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun.
All right, welcome back. We're going to...
Okay, our discussion, we're trying to talk about what is a rational or intelligent debate that's fair-minded and open.
Right.
And we're going to try to lay this out as carefully as we can.
Yeah, and just so you know, this is, just for the viewers at home, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and Rationalist East Tennessee. The infomercial kind of says all that.
Yeah, and it's a call-in show.
But there's the call-in show, and I think the infomercial gets that now. But we just want to say that many of you know that we get some interesting calls on this show, and what we have is a caller who's essentially calling in over and over again, tying up the phone line.
So let's go on now.
And we do want to go on with the show, but if you call in repeatedly and it's busy, and if you just keep hitting it, maybe we can wedge you in and still get you on the phone. But I just do want to apologize because it's really interfering with our show. We really want to talk to the people at home, and we're going to persevere through this. But in the meanwhile, let's get back to the topic, which is debating worth it?
Let's suppose you're in a classroom.
Yeah.
Okay? And you're teaching a course in religion. I just talked recently to a man who taught what's called world religions.
Right.
And we were talking about how do you deal with the question of objectivity and bias and fairness and, what you would expect a professor to deal with. And he pointed out, and I think this was a good point he made, that he had used a book by Houston Smith, very, very famous book, and Houston Smith could explain Hinduism and Buddhism and Christianity and Islam very well. But in the front of the book, he said, I am myself coming from a Christian point of view. Now, it's a particular version of Christian. You know, there are many, many versions. But in my personal opinion, this openness was good of him to do that. But at the same time, he was such a good writer that he could get inside Hinduism and explain it as an insider would. See, now that's what objectivity is, in my opinion, not pretending you're being neutral, because there isn't any such thing as a neutral point of view. If it's a point of view, it's not neutral.
Yeah.
So
But-
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it says something, and some people have that skill, and they're better than others.
It's a skill.
I'm one of the people, I think, that I have a lot of trouble getting inside their head sometimes.
Well, that's why it's called a discipline. It's a hard work to get inside Buddhism. It takes years. This professor spent years studying Buddhism. He spent years studying Islam. And therefore, he can do, that's why they hired him, not somebody else. And so, in other words, he's good at understanding other points of view in that field of religion. And then he gets inside another religion and explains it from the insider's point of view. And that's what I call fairness. And he gets into another. And then if you want to think about each one of those, are they consistent or either compare them, you can do that. But first of all, you've got to get an accurate presentation of each view. If I say to you, the trouble with your view, it is not mine, that's not a good criticism.
Yeah, all you're saying is we disagree, and I think
That's all, yeah.
I think the fact that if we were in a debate podium and there's a moderator between us, I think everyone knows that we disagree. Yeah. So a very important point: know your own opponent's position, and I say opponent, right? And I just mean that because that's the other person,
position, yeah.
right? And they are technicality, they are an opponent in the conversation, but they're not your enemy.
Exactly.
And on top of that, have you ever noticed how when you go around and you talk to people after something like this, whether you were part of it or a spectator yourself, they might disagree with the person they thought won the debate. They might disagree with the person who has the exact same views as them, almost. And they might...
That's it. That's right.
That, right now, that is the merit of
a good
atheism and worth debating and all that good stuff, because let's say we have a caller call in, and I do not represent rational people well. But I just talk them over, and they I don't know. Somehow I step on them, right? And, I'm up here. There's 3 people in this studio. I mean, you can't. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here, is to correct each other subtly, and maybe even, hey, hang on a second, and interrupt each other. So, everyone in that auditorium, or wherever you're at, everyone at home gets a chance to talk about these things, and maybe one day one of them will come up here and start doing this, call into the show. Maybe here we've got another caller.
Yeah.
Hope they get through.
It may be the same one.
Yeah, it might be the same one, but
we've had some very good callers. I've been very appreciative of some of our
exactly.
callers, and it's very helpful.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the advantages of a rational discussion is if you're trying to improve your own thinking, then you want someone to do 2 things: to find flaws in your thinking if you got flaws, and then, well, let's see what our caller has.
Yeah, we got us a caller here.
Go.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Could we have a name or nickname for you?
Sally.
Oh, hello, Sally. Sally, did you have trouble getting on through the line?
I watch you every week, and I heard you say that someone was being rude.
Yeah.
So I just kept hitting redial so I could help you out, and
Sally,
I did get through, so I'd be glad to make a comment.
Awesome. Please go ahead. Let's hear your comment.
I appreciate your show. I found you just by skiing the channels. And like I said, I watch you every week, and I appreciate it. I'm sorry that some people are so rude. I know a couple of weeks ago I wanted to call in so badly because this man called and said the S word over and over and over, and you asked him not to, and he kept saying, you know, you're full of S, S, S.
Oh, yeah.
And you asked him 3 times, and he kept. And I just thought, you know, if you want to make your point.
Hey, hang on a second. You know, and interrupt each other. So, everyone in that auditorium, or wherever you're at, everyone at home gets a chance to talk about these things, and maybe one day one of them will come up here and start doing this. Call into the show. Maybe here we've got another caller.
Yeah.
Hope they get through.
It may be the same one.
Yeah, it might be the same one, but
we've had some very good callers. I've been very appreciative of some of our
exactly.
callers, and it's very helpful.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the advantages of a rational discussion is if you're trying to improve your own thinking, then you want someone to do 2 things: to find flaws in your thinking if you got flaws, and then, well, let's see what our caller is.
Yeah, we got us a caller here.
Go.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Could we have a name or nickname for you?
Sally.
Oh, hello, Sally. Sally, did you have trouble getting on through the line?
I watch you every week, and I heard you say that someone was being rude.
Yeah.
So I just kept hitting redial so I could help you out, and
Sally,
I didn't get through, so I'd be glad to make a comment.
Awesome. Please go ahead. Let's hear your comment.
I appreciate your show. I found you just by skiing the channels, and like I said, I watch you every week, and I appreciate it. I'm sorry that some people are so rude. I know a couple of weeks ago I wanted to call in so badly because this man called and said the S word over and over and over, and you asked him not to, and he kept saying, you know, you're full of S, S, S.
Oh, yeah.
And you asked him 3 times, and he kept. And I just thought, you know, if you want to make your point, if you want to have a debate, if you have to go to cursing and being rude, then you've lost the debate.
That's that is true. Unfortunately, Sally, there's a tactic in debates where if you don't use the curse words, and if you sound a little more pleasant and you just slightly interrupt over and over, they can do the same thing, and then I could at least keep them on the show, right?
Right. But they get so rude. But I wanted to make a statement about, I wish that these people that they call up and they say, you know, oh, you're full of the devil, or you're going to hell, or what. You know, I would ask them to do this. Go on Google and Google Christopher Hitchens and YouTube and watch the sermon that he preaches. Of course, he's passed away now, but watch the sermon that he preaches about the 10 Commandments. If you've never watched it, I will tell you it's the best sermon I've ever heard. I'm 65 years old. And he shows, using the Bible, he goes through, the 10 Commandments are not just in the Bible once, they're in there 4 times. And he goes through how it's man that makes up the commandments, not God. And anybody that can watch that and still believe the Bible, I mean, you know, good luck to you.
And
but I just wish some of these people that think they know so much about the Bible would actually read the Bible.
Right. You know, you bring that up, and commonly you hear the 10 Commandments are posted in a school or a courthouse.
Right.
And the defense, when litigation doesn't uphold church-state separation and allows that to continue, a lot of times what you'll read in a judge's decision or something is that the historical value and its mutual terms, with our own law. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. We do that, right? I mean, that's law. But you know, they forget what's the first commandment? Don't have any other gods before me, right? I mean, how does that?
There's more than one God.
How does that?
They lost their discussion right there. Their God admits there's more than one God.
Yeah.
So there. And another thing too, they leave out slavery, and they leave out child abuse,
right?
And they leave out rape. What about those things? Those are equally as bad as stealing and bearing false witness.
Yeah, in fact, you know, you could make a really good case long before the 10. Well, we've talked about this on the program before. Long before the 10 Commandments, people of all cultures had to have certain rules and guidelines in order just to get along and have a pleasant life. You can't have a society in which you say, okay, let's all steal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Then who's going to work for a living?
Right.
You have to eat. Let's have nothing but lying.
Yeah.
Well, if everybody's lying, then you can't even have ordinary conversation.
Or they abuse children. Who's going to grow up?
Exactly.
Who's not going to be insane?
Well, exactly.
You make some excellent points there, Sally. Sally, let me ask you, if you have anything else, please go ahead and give it to us. But if not, since you had to just keep hitting the redial, I'm kind of hoping I could get another call in from someone else, too.
I hope so, too, and thank you for your show, and I do watch it every week, and I'm sure there's others out here that are watching it, and sometimes I'm just yelling at the callers because I want to really take them on. But thank you, and good luck.
All right, you're welcome.
Well, we've all been rude. Let's not make him not a human. He's a human being.
I'm kind of wondering now.
We've all been rude, but we've had to apologize and learn. I know.
What that is, while we have a chance, because it does come to debates. This, for example, this gentleman calls in. I say gentleman.
Yes.
And who acts like this. What this is to prevent us from functioning.
Yeah,
and it's also, I think I have a hankering that it's more something else. It's a temper tantrum, is what it is.
Yeah, well,
let's not feed him too much. Let's not feed him too much. But
anyhow, he's a fellow human being, and we all get mad, and we all, want to get our points across. But I think your point was, if you're going to get a point across, there's a civilized and a calm way to do it. Yeah. And in fact, if your point is so good, then I need to learn more about it. Because obviously I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. So if you've got something that I don't know or some insights I don't have, why should I deprive myself just because we differ on some other things?
Right. And on top of that, I like that. Again, I think when participating specifically in today's topic, which is atheism worth debating? Is it worth confronting people about their beliefs and that sort of thing? I mean, these are things that bite us a little bit because we invoke emotions, and some people just don't want to rock the boat, right? This isn't about rocking the boat so much as, I think rock the boat is becoming a dysphemism, when really it's a euphemism to an extent. I mean, because we're not fighting each other, right? What's the dysphemism should be?
Well, with distinction, let's suppose you and I disagree. That's not an attack on you personally,
right?
On your psychological states. That might be, if I make an attack, it's not on you, but on one of your ideas. Mm-hmm. Now, that seems to me to be a part of rational discussion. Mm-hmm. Now, what is an attack on an idea? It's not a belligerent thing. It's say, well, did you notice the inconsistency? You said this, and then you said this. Do you think those fit?
Right.
And well, everybody out there knows what inconsistency is.
Right.
And so if you help me see that I made one statement and it's not consistent with something else I say, then you've done me a favor because I want to straighten it out.
Right.
Especially if my goal is to get better knowledge.
Since Sally brought up the Ten Commandments, I find that something inconsistent is thou shalt not kill. Mm-hmm. It's inconsistent in Christian culture. I don't think that they're murderers, but I think that it ends up on both sides. Okay, so when you say that, though...
Okay, and if I were a Christian, how would you do this? Let me give you a Christian point.
Yeah.
Okay, you're an I'm going to play the devil's advocate.
Okay, and I'll be the asserting, man, your Bible says thou shalt not kill, and then people go kill.
And I've done this on this program before, but you ever hear of Lenin? Atheist?
Right. Yes.
How many people he slaughtered?
Lots.
How about our favorite, Joe Stalin?
Yep.
Probably the greatest thug of the 20th century. An atheist. That's the kind of guy you are.
I know. And on top of that, you could probably bring up that those people combined with Mao Zedong and I would argue that North Korea is an atheistic society. Now, have we got anywhere in this conversation is the point we're making.
Good point.
And here's the other thing. Notice now that I just shifted the conversation, actually not in my favor, but I shifted into oh, we did kill more people than you killed. Turns out their Christianity, while may not be incidental to the acts of Christians who have killed. And in fact, that I find that not to be the case. When Christians are doing that type of thing, there are other reasons. They're in a time of war and they're serving their country. And it was the same for atheists. And those particular atheists, my response, and this response does not go over well in debates, so this is something we don't like to hear. But yes, these people were atheists. But what was going on in their country at the time? And you find out that it is a religious, or not really, a state. We call it a state religion sometimes. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I
but
think you can make a state religion out of atheism.
Exactly.
And it's run by thugs.
Yes. And so what I find now, and I haven't had a chance to do this in any conversation with a religious person, but I would like to just say yes, they did, yes, they were atheist, and yes, but what I can't see, and when you look at the history, is their atheism did not cause those things to happen. Just like a lot of times, people's Christianity didn't cause them. Now, does it cause them to do things sometimes? Yes, unfortunately. And the case of an abortion doctor who is shot, the case of Islam with terrorists, and atheism even, you have a, heck, we were just talking about Madalyn Murray O'Hara. What happened to her? 95, 96, was killed, mutilated by one of her own employees at some former time. And now the question is, was there atheism, which, when you say atheism, that is not a descriptive term as much as Christianity is, or theism. I should have said theism.
Well, they're both pretty broad terms.
Very broad, yeah. And so that's something in a debate. If you were to bring up like the way I cut in about the inconsistency about the Old Testament, then you cut in about the deaths that have been caused by atheists. I find that if the two explore the history of the claims, both the claims you made and the claims that I made, you know what? Guess what? Those 10 commandments, not killing's a pretty good idea.
Pretty good idea.
And in fact, I would argue in that day and age, and depending on where you are in the world right now, thou shalt have no other gods before you might save your life in certain circumstances. It's just that now the setting's quite different, you know, with the modern world. Yeah. And on top of that, and that's the conversation we should have had, rather than the conversation where it's like, oh, you're atheists, killed all these people. Oh, you're Christians. Hitler was a Christian. He had that on his belt. It said,
Gott mit uns.
Gott mit uns, which is God with us, right? Do you really think that, now there's some anti-Semitism, and yes, there are historical links to what certain people were doing for certain reasons. Even Stalin and them, you know, they recognized that religion has huge power over the masses, and that if they could fashion a different one, or not even a religion, but a mentality that would give them the same power, and there were probably other reasons too. I mean,
well, he was in a country where they had a state religion.
Yes.
And then where the state promoted religion, and it was corrupt.
Right.
Anytime you have the state promoting any religion, you're going to corrupt.
Even if it's a good idea. Imagine we promoted, America was Jainism. Did I get it?
Jainism, yeah.
Jainism.
Yeah, it would corrupt the religion.
So now when my kid's at school and steps on a cockroach, well, that's probably taking it too far. Yeah. But it's about not harming anything, and you would suppress
every form of life.
You would suppress curiosity about things. You would, and on top of that, in a wartime, you might just get conquered, which is sad. But
would you agree if you had a state ideology called atheism, that would be a good thing?
No,
I agree.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be
because the state is endorsing, and it's still a relatively new idea, the First Amendment.
Yes,
it's paradoxical, and
came at about,
how many generations have we tested that on?
It came at about 1620 or 1640.
So what is it?
Country?
Like 30 generations or so, depending on how you cut the. We are breaking ground there, and so if you were to base an entire Constitution and a lot of amendments to it off of that notion, it could be a bad thing too. It could be holding you back. We got a caller. We're going to bring the caller in.
Go ahead.
Hello, caller. This is Freethought Forum. Could you have a name or nickname for you?
Go ahead.
Sure. My name's Pat.
Hello, Pat.
How are are y'all today?
You did say Pat, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Now
There we go. We got you now.
Thank you.
You have a comment for us, Pat?
I do. I was listening to you. I am an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to y'all talk about, the debate about atheism having killed more people than religion.
Right.
And I would respectfully disagree with the parameter of the argument and its result.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No one has ever been killed in the name of atheism.
Right. I do believe.
Go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
And ever. I mean, it's now Stalin, Mao, North Korea, Pol Pot, all these atrocious dictators who killed millions of people. No doubt they were evil people, and they were probably atheists at least as far as Lenin and Mao go.
Right.
What communism seems to have done wherever it has been implemented is degenerate into a personality cult, which I would say is a form of religion where it does have somebody you worship. Whether it's Lenin or whatever the current nut job in North Korea is, but Mao, all of these figures were worshipped.
Right.
And the remnants, even in Russia today, there are people, the remnants of that is still there. So we're not, you're not making an apples to apples comparison.
Right.
People are killed in the name of God. And it goes on all over the world, and it has, for thousands of years. It predates Christianity. People are,
Go ahead.
And so it is a specifically religious.
Let me ask you this.
Event. Go ahead.
You're not saying religion itself is prone toward violence because it's religion. Is that your theory?
I'm saying that belief in salvationist religion or belief in...
Sounds like you mean ideology.
Actually, I am saying that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're right. You and I know where we differ on that then. Go ahead.
And I think it's just like when you were talking earlier, when you talk to a Christian, they have tend, at least in my experience, to have the belief that morality comes from their religion alone.
Right.
And if you don't have their religion, you are, by definition, evil.
Well, listen, Pat, stay with us. I just want to let you know that we're down to almost 5 minutes at the end of the show, but I want you to stay with us real quick. While you were on the line, I think you missed some of our conversation. We don't actually think that people killed in the name of atheism. What we did was we demonstrated that, because the topic is actually whether is debating a good thing, right? Do you follow? So what we actually did was we pretty much did a mock debate up here, showing that by taking at first an honest knowledge-seeking endeavor and turning it into either a name-calling or a finger-pointing thing, and at the end of it, that ruins it, doesn't it? Don't you think it does?
I think it does. But I think that's the sort of the norm. Right.
No, we're not disagreeing with that. Yeah. So,
I think specifically religion religion is more identity than idea. And when you're discussing religion with someone, you're not discussing an idea. You're discussing the person, the core of the person, and it's hard for many people to discuss that as an idea.
You pointed out this was your experience, and I think it is. Your experience has been quite different from mine, however. I have had many good, helpful discussions with people who are religious, and I don't think they're all the same. In fact, I subscribe to a journal called Baptist Today, among other journals, because that's part of my profession.
Right.
But the biggest criticisms of fundamentalist Baptists comes from the journal called Baptist Today.
Yeah.
It makes atheists look like cream puffs.
I know. Well, because that's their profession,
and
like you said.
And they understand it from the inside, and they can criticize it because they're more knowledgeable than most atheists on that.
I want to get back to what, Pat, you said. You're attacking the person, or at least it's perceived that way when you talk with the religious people and their motivation. And there have been studies. We are now in the golden age of neuroscience, we think. Mm-hmm. And when you put someone in some type of functional brain scanner, functional MRI or whatever, and you see which part of the brains activate when I talk about their God, that's the same parts of the brain that activate when I insult them. Exact same.
Yeah.
Why is that? Now, I'm not going to go on any further with the topic because that's as far as I understand it. But the speculation is that you harbor an identity of religion, of your worldview. Atheists do this too, feminists. When you say something, when you talk about those things, unlike other, debating whether you go Ford or Chevy, I guess that depends on where you live, but the interpretation of the other person, if they're not watching, if they're not paying careful attention to the conversation, which most of us aren't, they will take it personally, is my point. Uh-huh. And they won't just take it personally, they will perceive it as a personal attack, even if they don't, and I do it too.
I find among religious people and among some atheists, both groups, I find the word can sometimes be just a knee-jerk word.
Yeah. Let's give the last word to Pat real quick. Did you have anything else for us?
No, that was really it.
Okay. We appreciate it, Pat. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing the show.
Be with us some more.
We're glad you got to call in.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
That was helpful.
Yes. Excellent point. I just didn't want any misunderstandings because we did. There was a mock debate. We were actually debating in one sense because those are real concerns about whose worldview causes damage. And I think being here, we're making at least a statement that ideologies, that unquestioning notions, these things cause damage. And I think the reason that religions inherit this problem is because over time, some of the ideas are really good ideas.
This is basically because human beings have been this way. Whether it's religion or not, human beings have been this way, and we've had to learn over the centuries to say, let's be open to exchanging ideas and don't kill each other.
Right.
Now, that may sound today like common sense,
right.
But it used to not be called common sense.
Right, but and over time, that idea could easily, just evolving with the civilization, not, the ideas evolving, the language evolving. 1,000 years later, you may have an idea that was like, don't kill your own people into your tribe, to where it's worded, don't kill anyone. However, it's meant only kill people that you need to kill. And look at the Ten Commandments. That's where we are, or the Ten Commandments. That's where we are on that commandment. It's time to start wrapping things up, though, folks. Get out your pen and paper. This has been a Freethought Forum, this has been Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Please send us feedback. Leave voicemail at 865-272-9060 or email us at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you with us. And you can see the show on Tuesdays from 5 to 6, as you have today, Eastern Time in Knoxville. And this is, give them the...
We'd like to thank our viewers and send a special thanks to Sam, Jonas for technical support, our callers, CTV Knox.
CTV,
Thanks for